So the Boston Celtics have themselves an $8.4 million exception that they got from the Gordon Hayward injury, which basically gives them that much money to play with in terms of acquiring someone in a trade or signing someone in free agency. Now, there are a couple of caveats with this. The player they acquire has to be on a one-year deal, so they can't be on anything more than that, and they can't have any team options, player options. It has to just be a one-year deal and nothing else. So that does create some complications for it, but I think the Celtics will totally use this exception. And when you start to think about the potential options that they have, it actually gets pretty interesting. And I think there are a few different avenues they could go in, and given that they're currently, the second seed in the East, maybe the third, I don't remember. Them, Toronto, and Cleveland is all pretty close, but they're up there. I think this is somewhat significant, because typically teams that are at the salary cap don't have this sort of luxury. And then we can talk about they could potentially re-sign the guy after this season, bird rights and all that stuff, unless I'm not understanding this stuff correctly. But we'll mainly focus on this year for these guys. I think the two types of players they could use would be a three-point shooting wing as well as a big man who's better than Aaron Baines. Because Baines, he offers help for Horford, because there are some centers in the NBA that Horford just can't deal with. The rebounders and the guys who are just, kind of forceful around the basket. And Baines has done an okay job of just giving the Celtics an option for players like that. But at the same time, he does create spacing problems sometimes. He also isn't really that good offensively. He has this kind of 12-foot jumper that isn't bad, and sure, he's not bad at finishing around the basket, but you don't really go to him for anything else besides the dude's wide open and the defense is forcing us to throw it to him, so we'll throw it to him. And sure, he might get the occasional offensive rebound. Aaron Baines is not a bad player, okay? He's playing about 18 minutes a game for the Celtics, but if you had the opportunity to get a big man who could play that same type of role, but just be better and play more than 18 minutes, I think you jump on it. And the first guy I would think of, just because the story's out there all the time, and I also don't shut up about this guy, is Nerlens Noel of the Mavericks, who, that relationship is going south quickly. And I think the Celtics would definitely like to have Nerlens. The question is, would he really do what you want that center next to Al Horford to do? Noel is nowhere near as strong as Aaron Baines. And while he's a better perimeter defender than that guy, he might not be as good when it comes to mixing it up physically with some of the bigger centers in the NBA. And if he can't do that, well, that's going to be a problem. Nerlens' rebounding is also questionable. Next to Horford, that could be a problem. So I don't know if you really go with Nerlens Noel. Now, there is Derek Favors of the Utah Jazz, who I think would fill in this role very well, because he's strong like Baines, but he's more athletic, he's more talented as well. The thing with Favors is he's making $12 million. So maybe you'd be willing to include Marcus Morris in a deal for Derek Favors. Morris, I think he's been okay for the Celtics. He does like to have his little isolations where he pulls up for two-pointers, and that's not really efficient basketball. But I do think he has potential as a defender, and when he doesn't do too much on offense and he kind of plays within the team system, I think he can be okay. And if you made that move, that would be a decent shift in style, right? Because Morris can come in there, play small ball 4, stand on the perimeter, stretch the defense out, make some athletic plays. Derek Favors is more of a physical dude around the basket, and that could hurt your spacing a bit. It could also create a potential problem where if you ever wanted to play Derek Favors with Daniel Tice, or if you wanted to play him with Aaron Baines, that could be some rough spacing. Now, the reason I bring Favors up is because, Utah is not very good right now, and he just doesn't fit in with Rudy Gobert at all, especially with Ricky Rubio as well. Those three together, Utah just can't generate enough offense when those three guys are on the floor. And even when Favors and Gobert are on the floor, in a different point guard, they still have a really tough time. So I don't think they would move Marcus Morris, and he'd be pretty much the only guy around that salary range to make it work for Favors, because they're definitely not giving up Jalen or Marcus Smart or any of them. Also, I just read that if they traded for Nerlens Noel, that would not come with his bird rights, so there's that one for you. There's also Dwayne Dedmon of the Atlanta Hawks, who's making $6 million. Atlanta sucks. Maybe if you threw some second-round picks at him, they'd give you Dedmon. I don't know. That's enough for big guys. We got to get to some wing players, because I think the Celtics, they don't really have a small forward or like a wing player off the bench who just knocks down shots. I think the idea was for that guy to be Jason Tatum, but then of course Hayward got injured. Because if you just look at the recent games the Celtics have played, against Cleveland, they had really 4 guys off the bench play actual minutes. Aaron Baines, Terry Rozier, Semi Ojeleye, Marcus Smart. None of those guys are a wing player. Marcus Smart kind of is. He can act as an off-ball player, but at his core, that's not what he is. Against the Brooklyn Nets, Marcus Smart, Terry Rozier, Marcus Morris, but Marcus Morris, like I mentioned earlier, I think it's a little suspect with him, okay? And I think if you had, like Marco Bellinelli, just like a knockdown shooter in there over Marcus Morris, potentially could be more of a consistent thing. Now again, Morris has way more potential than Bellinelli does on defense. I understand that completely, but having that contrast could be a good thing, because Morris, there are times when his offense just isn't really going to be a thing for you because the three-pointer's not dropping or whatever. I mean, he's shooting 35% right now. That's good. But he's been up and down, and he's got that knee injury. And if you feel like he's not going to be there for you, especially in the playoffs with that knee injury, you see what I'm getting at. Another name is actually Thabo Sefolosha, if you want to stick with the defense. Now, from an offensive standpoint, it can be frustrating with Thabo sometimes because, dude isn't exactly thrilled with shooting outside shots all the time. But I think on a team like this one that's already defense first, and a team like this one that is very good at getting guys open shots, could be a thing. Now, if you play him out there with Marcus Smart, or you play him out there with Aaron Baines, could be a problem. But I should mention, to Sefolosha's credit, he's taking over 2 threes a game right now, which is towards like his OKC days, which is when he's been his best as an outside shooter, so maybe that could be something. There are definitely names out there. And so those are the guys I think about for the Celtics. I saw that Andrew Bogut just got hurt or released or whatever. Not Bogut. Okay, Aaron Baines is better than Bogut. But that's what I think. I think there are some bigs out there who could be more overall players than Aaron Baines. But I think there's risk at the same time. But I do think, if you have an opportunity to get a big man who could be better than him, go for it. Derek Favors being the one I would see there. And then, given that Marcus Morris might not be playing for you because of that knee, or he might not be as effective because of the knee, or his offense just won't be that good because, there have been stretches of his career where his offense hasn't been that good anyway, specifically with his outside shot, then, inserting a real shooter in there, or even just a wing like a Sefolosha, maybe that could be it for the Celtics. It's interesting stuff, man. Usually a team that's this good doesn't have any options, really. When it comes to acquisitions, they have to match salaries. But this player exception thing, it opens up some avenues for them, and I think they definitely should act on this, because it's not like they gain anything by not using it, so we'll see what happens.